We are Rogue Media Sports.
Show, Rogue Media Sports Network. I woke up feeling like a Friday, and I don't know why. It is only Thursday, and I also hate when people say stuff like that. Because, like, what am I supposed to do about it? You thought it was Friday? Who gives a shit? It's also like when people try to tell me about their dreams. Nobody ever wants people, like, tell them about their dreams. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I can't put myself in this vague scenario that you're describing that you had happened to you while you were asleep last night. Zach, do you ever tell people about your dreams? Like, not your ambitions, but your sleepy dreams?
I don't dream, really.
Fuck you.
But no, even when I do have them, I don't usually.
You know who likes to do that?
You?
Pete.
Oh,
Pete likes to tell you about your dreams. I don't like to tell you about my dreams.
Does he tell
I have
you?
some weird ones when I take melatonin, obviously.
Has he told you about his dreams?
Yeah. He told us all about that Kamala Harris one.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
I was like, dude, we get it. You had the dream, man. You know, there's like one guy who just like had a dream and had like a really interesting story about it. Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
That's a good dream. You know what I mean? He painted a pretty good story there. Other than that, we don't want to hear about your dreams, man. We do not want to hear about your dreams. Why did I even get off on that? What am I talking about, dude?
I don't know. I have
That's
no
a guy
clue.
who wasn't ready to do good radio right there. Good YouTube.
After he attacked me for
not being locked the fuck in.
Yeah.
I think next week we try for me to go a whole week without swearing on the show.
Okay. Then do we put just like a jar on the desk there for you or something?
Maybe that's a good one. Because I also don't want it to, part of the allure of my just absolutely letting loose on this show is that I can swear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like it's the Patriots are so bad that I shouldn't be getting as worked up as I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I could get that worked up this week because they're playing that Miami team with Snoop Huntley at quarterback. Maybe I will get that mad. But it's almost like those memes of like Imagine Dragons and they're like dancing on stage with like their shirt off, showing how ripped they are. And someone will be like, they don't have a single song that they need to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how it should be with me, like breaking stuff in my apartment. And it's like the Patriots have not given you nearly enough hope for you to do this. You know?
That's funny. Okay, I get that though.
Baylor's the same way. But anyway, I mean, obviously the big story of the day, of the week in Boston sports, which I cannot believe the moment that we're in, that there's postseason baseball going on. We're smack dab in the middle of the NFL season. And undoubtedly, like the biggest story in Boston sports right now is the Jeremy Swayman contract situation and this tete-a-tete between Jeremy Swayman and the Bruins front office and Louis Gross. Everyone knows the name of an NHL player's agent. Like that doesn't happen. And these kind of disputes do not happen much in our sport in the NHL. So much that it is grabbing headlines in the middle of this. There is a quarterback that the Patriots selected in the top 5 of the draft. And like the team stinks. People are begging for him to play. And that's like just as big a story, maybe not quite as big as this Jeremy Swayman thing. It's ruling Boston sports right now. We are talking with Matt Barry of the Bruins Benders podcast. He's going to be on in our next segment. So that's why I'm not diving right into that now. Because we talked to him only last week and so much has changed. We're now seeing quotes from this upcoming Amazon Prime show, which, oh man, that's tomorrow, Zach. I don't have a high school football game to do tomorrow. Oh, you better believe I am sitting my ass down on the couch and watching that. I think it's only going to be the first episode, which is not the Jeremy Swayman episode. It's going to be Bruins Leafs, so I'm way into it, but it's not going to be the Jeremy Swayman one if I have that on record correctly. But man, that's that. We're now seeing quotes coming from that. We saw the 64 million reasons quote from Cam Neely earlier this week. We went all over that. So much to catch up on with Matt. when he comes on next segment. So I got to start with, I guess, I've been lured into baseball again. And I did mention, Zach, when we talked about shortening the season, moving it up the end of the season to Labor Day, like I said, that first week, that wild card week is the best week of baseball the whole year. The same way, like the wild card divisional round are so, especially the wild card round, are so great in the NFL because you just got games going on all the time. And it's still that high stakes that you would see, but with it going on 4 times a day, And so I've been hooked back in this week for playoff baseball. I loved it last night, man. I was watching that Padres game, even though the other one was probably a better game. I was so enamored by this Padres team because right now they're just a great case study on how to do it all wrong. You know what I mean? Like they've spent so much money and given up all their capital the last 3 seasons, and it has not paid off yet. They've had an NLCS appearance, and that's it. I mean, we can go back like 4 years here. I think they were doing it that COVID year too. And they have a real chance to go to the World Series again. They do. They're not the best team in the National League, but they absolutely have that chance. So I was watching that, and Tony Hawk was there. He's cheering it on. Like, it was great playoff baseball. The low scoring pitchers duels, like in Baltimore and in Houston. Zach, your Houston Astros.
Yeah, they're going home. Thank goodness. No, they're not mine. Fuck them.
How about those Tigers, man? What a story.
Good
for AJ.
Biggest Tigers fan.
Like, I'm not saying AJ got railroaded or anything. AJ Hinch with the Astros. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but when you're a manager and the franchise that you helped bring to the top kind of tried to pin it all on you. And there was probably were some other people in that front office that should have been taking ownership of this. And probably in that dugout that should have been taking ownership of this. Not the least of which being the manager for the Red Sox, who did also take a suspension too. But to see him have that big old nasty grin on his face when they sweep the Astros, knock them out in their own barn in the juice box, was pretty cool. And by the way, these Astros, man, they know how to get knocked out at home. They are not adept to that. They can get knocked out at home. 2018, I was there when the Red Sox won the pennant in Houston. 2019, they lost Game 7 of the World Series at home. 2021, they lost the World Series at home. 22, they won the World Series at home. But last year, they get knocked out in a Game 7 to Zach's Rangers at home. And this year, they get swept 2 home games, 2 and screwed, just like that. And how about that? AL Central, man. The Tigers, the Royals, both get road sweeps. The Guardians are ready to take on somebody. Are they taking on Detroit? I think that's right. Yeah, because the Yankees get Kansas City. Man, so baseball. I've been roped back in with baseball. God, I love baseball. I just think it goes on too long, and it's tough to compete with football, especially those first couple weeks of football, man. It's like, back to my point on that from a couple weeks ago, it's like it's really tough to compete with the first few weeks of football, but at least you are better off doing that with postseason than with regular season, because you keep going regular season all the way up through October. It's like you've lost the interest. You've completely lost the interest. So now I'm into Red Sox hot stove thing now, because now that I'm watching baseball again, pretty in tune. And the Red Sox are in a good offseason position. I don't know if they have the ownership that's going to be like, we're going to take advantage of this great offseason opportunity that we have with money to spend and prospects to burn. We started to hear about, the guys they could go after, free agents, Blake Snell, Corbin Burns probably just pitched his last game for the Orioles. Obviously, Juan Soto is the big name that's out there. But I saw a good article on NESN.com yesterday, and they laid out some of the moves they can make. It's Tim Crowley, who I think is one of the new guys at NESN, for 4 things that the Red Sox can do in this offseason to make themselves better. And the number one, which I was surprised people weren't talking about earlier, is the trading for a number 1 starter, an ace for this team, trading for him. Because you look back at the great Red Sox pitching staffs of my lifetime and the aces that they've had in there, Pedro, Schilling, Beckett, Sale, all of them except for John Lester came in through a trade. Not even free agent splash the cash. You did that with like Lackey. But those guys you traded for. You traded 2 of your top prospects for Pedro. You traded 2 of your top prospects for Josh Beckett. You traded your best pitching prospect for Kurt Schilling. Waco native Casey Fossum, by the way. You traded your 2 top prospects for Chris Sale. Every time, that's what it comes to. Now, that's a damning mark on the organization that they can't develop pitching. They've developed 1 top-end major league starting pitcher in the last 30, 40 years. Like, I'm serious. We go back that far. We might go back to Clemens to find that. But John Lester's really the only one. Buchholz gave you something. Other guys gave you something. But I guess you can call Derek Lowe a prospect. But they traded for him too. You know what I mean? So not really. And so that's where I come at with this Red Sox. Speaking of the Derek Lowe thing, because he was traded from the Seattle Mariners. And now we heard some rumors of the Mariners looking to move on from some of their young starters in last month, but it didn't really have much traction to it. But he lays out Logan Gilbert here. George Kirby could be the other one for Seattle. But I love Logan Gilbert. This kid's 27. He's just ARB eligible for the first time after this year. All-star, led the league in I think starts and whip. What else? That was it. Starts and whip. But had a fantastic year for a Seattle team that really fell off the face of the cliff in August, kind of came back a little bit. But for a 27-year-old, he's just entering his prime. 33 starts, over 200 innings, a whip under 1. All his like baseball savant stat cash measurables are awesome. Like awesome. His pitching run value and breaking run value are both in like the top percentile. He's in the 100th percentile of extension. Zach, we love a good extension.
We do.
We love growers, not showers, right? Or something like that. No, it's extension, which is like literally trying to find out like how far off the rubber his arm angle gets. And so that's talked about so much, like spin rate, arm angle, like how the batter actually sees this kid. He's like the toughest one to see in all of baseball. That's what made Chris Sale so great. His arm angle and the slider, like he was 6'6". Like you didn't even see it till it was right at you. Logan Gilbert's the same way. Weak contact, one of the lowest hard hit percentages of any starter in baseball. His walk rate is tremendous. I saw him pitch at Fenway, which was actually not a good game, back in July, and he hits 100 easy. 98, 99, 100. 4 really good pitches, and 2 of them he didn't even use all that much because the first 2 were that good. 4-seamer slider. I think he could be a great right-handed sinker ball pitcher, but I'm no major league scout, so he doesn't use that pitch a lot. And the split finger is the other one where that almost kind of works like a sinker because it's coming in hard at you, and the bottom just falls out of that thing, man. Imagine Kurt Schilling's splitter, but he could also throw the 4-seamer 98, 99, 100 miles an hour. Finally, the Red Sox have something where they're comfortable enough they could throw some prospects at them. Tristan Casas, love the guy, and wouldn't mind if he stuck around with this team. But you look at a guy like him, you look at a guy like Wilyer Abreu, another one I really loved in this season. I thought made a real push towards the Rookie of the Year award, and we'll see where he finishes. He'll be in the top 5. But with Roman Anthony coming up, and other infielders like Christian Campbell, and obviously Marcelo Meyer, those are middle infielders, not first basemen like Casas, but you can move some guys around there. I think finally they have some positional versatility in terms of their prospects that they can make a deal like this. And whereas in 2016, Yohan Moncada was the top prospect in all of baseball, and Michael Kopech was one of the top prospects, pitching prospects in all of baseball, you're talking about like 2 of the top 5 guys in your system. You really only touching 1 top 5 guy because of how good these prospects are coming up. I think if you can make a deal for Casas and or Abreu for Logan Gilbert, you'll take that. You will take that to get a top-end starting pitcher for this rotation, which desperately needs it. Because the other thing, too, that the Red Sox are in a good position in, not just the prospects that they can give up, but the rest of the rotation. Okay? You're probably getting Giolito back this year off an injury. Houck showed you some really positive things. You got some good spurts out of Cutter Crawford and those guys. And it's like, those aren't going to be top-end pitchers. But if Tanner Houck, for what he gave you this year, and knows how to pitch a whole season now, can be your third starter, you're in a good spot. Cutter Crawford at the back end of your rotation, same thing. Like those guys, you saw some shit out of them at the end of the year when they had way surpassed their innings limit or their innings high from their whole career. But you put them at a Bronson Arroyo spot, a fourth or fifth starter, you're in a really good spot. And you just need one of those guys at the top end. It stinks that Brian Bayo doesn't get mentioned by me right in there as like, here's your ace. You just got to go get a second guy like Giolito. You already tried that. Giolito was hurt. Bayo was not the same pitcher. If Bayo could be a second or third guy in your rotation behind a guy who's just entering into his prime like Logan Gilbert, boy, you're talking about contention sooner rather than later. Because as bad as this season ended at 81-81, you still finished in third, and you were 10 games up at the All-Star break. Right when your pitchers that I just named, Houck and Bayo, mainly Houck and Cutter Crawford, were hitting their innings limit, their innings high for their career, right at the All-Star break. You take some of the load off them with a Logan Gilbert at the top of the rotation, and we're talking about contending for a playoff spot next year, finally, which you should have been this year with what you saw in the first half of the season. Anyway, contract talk. Who can get enough of it? Honestly, I can't, because we're going to talk Jeremy Swayman, Bruins, Cam Neely, 64 million reasons, NHL face-off on Amazon Prime, all of it. We're talking it with our Bruins expert, Matt Barry. That's coming up next on The Cam Show. We are back. It is the Cam Show. It's Rogue Media Sports Network. It's Matt Barry from the Bruins Benders podcast, our resident Bruins expert. And of course, we are talking the big news around the Boston Bruins right now. Of course, Fabian Lysell down to Providence, not getting that second line spot. It is what is dominating the Boston Bruins talk around the team. Matt, can you believe that?
Well, I mean, the problem here, I think, it's Lysell was just actually called up a few minutes ago. He'll get another.
Oh my God, Matt Barry, breaking news on our pod.
He'll get a shot. one more shot here tonight against the Kings in Quebec. But I really think it's going to be Morgan Geekie there to start. And Brad Marchand made some comments recently about um, rookies and what he expects from them. And it seemed to be a little bit of a pointed comment toward players like Lysell and Merkulov, in that you have to play a 200-foot game. You have to be defensive minded. You have to take responsibility. You have to show up every night. So I don't know if he's totally comfortable or confident right now in someone like Lysell being on that line with Coyle and himself. So I think you're going to see Geekie there, at least to start the season. They have the option to send Lysell down to start the year. The guy, though, that I'm worried about a little bit is Merkulov, because he had 30 goals last season. He's now 24 years old. I don't think there's much to prove down there anymore. And there were some rumors that he was talking here and there with KHL teams. And I think it's something you have to keep in the back of your mind, that if he's sent down and starts in Providence again, that maybe he gets a little miffed. And I think you need to kind of keep an eye on that situation. But as far as Lysell, he'll get a look again tonight. He looked better the last time. And I expect pretty good things from him this season with Providence. But it's going to be a matter of consistency. And that's what kind of gets it done in the NHL.
Matt, this is why we have you. You rolled right with that. You gave us the Fabian Lysell breakdown, which that is going to be funny to kind of monitor throughout this year. There is another storyline going on with the Bruins. This Swayman drama continues. And it's like we talked like last week, and there's been like 3 or 4 more huge headlines. I was saying in the first segment, Matt, in a way, this is good for the Bruins in a weird way, in that we are in the middle of an NFL football season. The MLB playoffs have just started, and the biggest sports story in Boston right now is the Bruins goalie and whether he's going to sign with the team. But earlier this week, let's start here with the Cam Neely. I had 64 million reasons why I would be here. And that kind of took Louis Gross, Jeremy Swayman's agent, off guard. He's saying, whoa, we haven't seen that deal yet. We haven't seen 64. And now we're hearing about 62.4. Matt, who are we supposed to believe in this one? We know Cam could be a fiery guy, but are we supposed to believe that that was actually on the table? What we're guessing is 8x8 for 64.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been reported that it might have been 8x7.8, which is, probably Cam rounding up. It's just one of those things. It's in the ballpark, and it's just, look, Cam is a hot-tempered guy. He's much different than Don Sweeney, who's a cerebral guy. And I'll say this: I think Don Sweeney loves this. I think he loves the business side of it. He's a Harvard guy. I think he loves to try to win the signing, win the trade. I mean, he loves the whole competitive spirit of this type of thing. I think he loves it. I think Cam just would rather watch guys slam guys into the boards and play hockey. Like, I just, and he's not the prototypical executive. He still has a fire that burns in his belly. And I think that he looks at Swayman in this situation as one of those, give me a break type of things. And the Bruins never talk about contract numbers and things really in the media. And for him to say that was almost this last gasp, like, look, this is what we're offering. It's totally fair. Give it a rest, and let's either get it done, or you're going to sit all season long. And I think that was the Bruins sort of, and look, the owner was up there, the coach was up there, the general manager, Cam Neely, everyone was on the podium. This was a sort of a planned thing where he was going to make this comment. It wasn't an off the cuff thing. They were saying, look, we're going to state our case in a subtle little way right here. And it almost puts it back into Swayman's camp. And I think it actually is advantageous for the Bruins, and actually could result in a deal getting done, because it took away some of what Swayman was relying on. And that was kind of, sending things in through the media to say that maybe the Bruins were being unfair. And it's Neely's way of saying we're not being unfair. So now what? So I think you're going to see a deal done. I wouldn't be surprised if it was tomorrow, to be honest with you. I think you're going to see a deal done. I'm interested to see the number, but I think this is going to be the final thing that kind of pushes it over.
Yeah. And to the Swayman point of like what he's leaking through the media or his camp or Louis Gross, whomever it may be, like that is trying to fit into what I'm thinking is the old narrative of the Bruins are just going to be super cheap. And they're not going to value you as someone who's coming back with the team and not going to try and pay you market value. And I think what the Bruins are putting out there probably is market value, right? And
Sure.
and I think if he had signed 8x8, let's go with that, 8x8 for 64, I think Bruins fans would be like, all right, perfect. Like, there we go. That's what we're looking for. And now that the Bruins throw that narrative back as like, hey, here's 64 million. That's what we gave them, because they know that all their smart fan base is saying, yeah, that's what this should be. You know, no one's buying in too much to the hype to say, no, Swayman should have 10 million. We talked about that a couple months ago now, a month ago, whatever it was. And we were both in agreement, like, no one thinks that's fair. You know, and when we heard the Spit and Chicklets throwing out 6.2 AAV, everyone was also saying, "Ooh, that's not going to get it done. That's really lowballing him." But 8x8 seems the most fair of all of it. And if Swayman had just signed that and this number had never come out prematurely, that would have looked great, I thought, for both sides. And instead, here we are talking about this as a dramatic situation. And so I guess then you had said this could happen as soon as tomorrow. Now, from you following this whole time, could you see it going any higher than about 8.5 at this point, now that 8 number has been released?
I don't think Bruins will go 8.5. I think the highest, and this is just me, in my opinion, the highest would be like an 8.25. You know, it wouldn't go 8.5. I don't think they'd go that high. I don't think they want to go higher than 8. So I think you might see an 8.25, just to get it done and get it over with. When Don Sweeney talks about landing spots and so forth, I think they did come in at a 6 point something or other to start. I think so. But then I think that Sweeney had in the back of his head, like, 8's the max we're going to go.
Right. It was kind of put out there as like, that
Right.
was the same report of also Sweeney hasn't talked to him in 3 weeks. So
Sure.
the way the fans hear that is 6.2 and we're done. You
Right.
know, and that's almost certainly not what happened.
And that's not true. And I'll, there's some talk about what Louis Gross has really told Jeremy Swayman, or what if there was an offer for 8 or 7, whatever it was, if Swayman's getting all the offers, or if Swayman just told Gross, I'm not doing anything less than 8.5. Don't talk to me about it unless it's there. So that could be. I mean, I don't know, but I think from agent to player, legally, you have to give the offers and play the game with your client. So it's not like Louis Gross is just being underhanded and not telling Swayman this or that, or he may not have told him every little offer or every little number because Swayman wouldn't take it anyway. Sure, maybe, but at the end of the day, Swayman is worth about 8. Because he's won 1 playoff game. He's played 130 games in the NHL. He was a part-time, half-year player, a rotation goaltender who was good for a bit, but then was great when it mattered, just in the postseason, was great. And he talked about it on this Face-Off Inside the NHL Amazon Prime video from last year.
I've got the quote right here. If you
okay,
want.
great.
Let's do it. First off, I'm so excited for this show, for this Face-Off. And this one, this is not Friday's episode, I don't think. I think this is going to come out in like a couple of weeks, this Swayman one, from what I've seen. Now, I don't know. If I was the NHL or the Amazon people, I'd be like, put this thing out.
All right, do it right now. Right.
Anyway, here's the quote. He's talking about arbitration from last year. Hearing you're not worthy of what you think you're worthy of, that was hard to hear. You don't forget what was said. I wrote them down, and I looked at them the other day. This is during the Toronto series or Florida series, sometime in the playoffs last year. I looked at them the other day, and I had a couple of check marks. My biggest knock was how I wasn't trustworthy in the playoffs. Check. And so he's keeping notes of all of this, and clearly still that arbitration thing from last year is coming and rearing its ugly head.
Right. And I think now, look, there's 2 sides to this. I love the fact that it motivates him. I hope it does. I hope you're putting it all over your bathroom walls. I don't, whatever. Great. But the problem is that it's so over the top, and all we keep hearing about is it. And here's the other thing. He took them to arbitration. He's a humane business major. or whatever the hell it is. So you know the business side of it. Do you think you're walking in arbitration and they're going to say all sorts of nice things about you? No, because the judge is going to say, well, what's the problem? Here's $9 million. Like, so what? Don't tell me that you didn't expect to hear, yeah, we don't trust you in the postseason, because the previous 2 years, Linus Ullmark was our goaltender in the postseason, and you only got in because he started getting banged up and tired, and we put you in later in the series. Like, so, and we lost both series. So no, we can't. We didn't know if we could trust you then. Do we know now? Yes, we have a better idea now. For sure. So now that's why it's 8 million. Sure.
Right.
But again, it's a small sample size. And you say Saros makes 7.75. That's more of the kind of number and more of the comparable. It's not Vasilevsky. It's not even Bobrovsky. It's not even guys who won cups. It's guys like, Gibson and these types of guys. So I think now in the whole market correction thing, I think is a thing right now with the players union, and he's taking on that. But I'll tell you, it's Igor Shesterkin who should be taking on that responsibility.
Oh, and he will be resetting it. Yeah.
And he will be, and not quite Jeremy Swayman. He's not at that level yet.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, I think that's something that we need to remember in all of this, because we all like Swayman.
Yes.
I think we all want Swayman to be that guy for the next 8 years. I think that titillates Bruins fans. You know what I mean? But we are talking about a guy who was out of his mind in the playoffs last year and won one playoff series. Tuukka didn't get his extension until they went to the Cup final in 2013. And they were like, okay, this is our guy. And he was a year or two older. And so it's a weird situation on that end, because so many Bruins fans do want this to work. They're not like, screw it, just go with Korpisalo. No one's really saying that on the Bruins fan side of things. But you talk about it, for a guy who knows his business or wants to know himself as this kind of, wolf of Causeway Street, so to speak.
Right.
He's getting real offended by this.
He is. And I just can't understand it. And there's nothing there that you just read that's not factual or that's any real derogatory at all, really. So yes, he wants it to motivate him, sure. But if you're that oversensitive by it, and I'll tell you this, if it's not done by this weekend and it goes into the regular season, if I'm the Bruins, I have a real temptation to pull the offer and be like, you know what? Let's wait till December 1st and let's explore the options, because maybe we won't want this guy. Like maybe he just backs himself into a corner and now we just don't like the guy as much as we used to.
Yeah.
Like, you're not doing us a solid. You're not coming and meeting us in the middle. We didn't take you to arbitration the second time. We traded the other guy. We took only 1 year on the last deal. We did 3 things to benefit you. And you didn't come and meet us in any way, shape, or form in the middle. So, maybe I say, you know what? And I like Jeremy Swayman, and I think they're a better team with Swayman, obviously. And I think you have a real problem at goaltender, potentially, if you don't sign him. But at what cost? You know what I'm saying? It's the Boston Bruins. They spend to the cap all the time. They'll be fine. There's life after Jeremy Swayman. It's not like this guy is Ken Dryden. And there's no way you can let him go. Patrick Waugh, you can't let him go. Like, he could go and you would find a replacement at some point. And goaltender is the one thing you've done well the last 15 years as an organization. So,
right. So I'm not in that camp. I heard Felger say something about it. It's like, well, just go to Korpisalo. Bob Ascens is great. He'll just be,
right. Right. Well, that's a stretch.
The Bruins have been able to go to the next guy because they've had the next guy and they've dealt with that, whether it be, an old Tim Thomas behind Raycroft and then Tuukka Rask behind him and then finding Ullmark and then getting Swayman. There's been that kind of lineage. And right now you'd be back up against the wall. But to your point, I think there's a world where the Bruins say, this is going to take a hit for us this year, not having Swayman. But to be honest, we're really another year or two away from really competing, like really being a cup final team if we're playing our cards right. So we can go find a goalie after this year. you know, or we can find a goalie tandem and we can make this work, and we'll see what Korpisalo is. Korpisalo had good numbers when he played for good teams and not good numbers when he played for bad teams. So I think there is something to that. And I think there's also something to a lot of Bruins fans like myself seeing Tom Brady through the years of that was a guy who not only, you know, took good money, but took discounts. So that's one part of it. But to the motivation part of it, it's like he was always motivated by the haters, by the doubters.
Yeah.
But it wasn't coming up in every press conference.
No,
it wasn't coming up like he was just whining and bitching every time.
Right.
You know what he did? He actually didn't talk at all. He went out there on the field and he won championships.
Sure.
And we know that still pisses him off that he was picked in the 6th round and this, that, and the other.
Sure.
But it's like Jeremy Swayman goes through arbitration once and we don't ever hear the end of it.
Right. Yeah. It just becomes, like you said, it crosses the line into whining and moaning and groaning and poor me and being oversensitive. And again, I love the motivational thing. Like I love it. Use it. But let's not talk about it every 5 seconds. And let's not talk about it in a way that justifies what you're asking for, which is too friggin' much. Like at the end of the day, it's too much money for you. So that's right now, that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. So again, he has no real leverage because I think Neely's just pissed enough to let him sit all season long, to be honest. And they have $9.5 million sitting in cap space that they could use somewhere else. If Korpisalo's pretty good, they could use $9.5 million to get a winger and at the trade deadline and try to go win the thing. You know, so there's a lot of different options there for them. More so than people think. People think he has all the leverage. He's lost some of it with the Neely comments, and he's going to lose even more of it if Korpisalo comes out and plays well.
Yeah, and that's another good part of this is that like it's really not the end of the world.
No,
we all want it, like we just went over, but it's not the end of this is not your franchise player. It is your goalie, and that's what you want. But anyway, the Bruins start Tuesday. They're with Florida on Tuesday. They watch the banner go up, and boy, what a way to start your season. This is the second time in 5 years, I believe, the Bruins have been someone's banner-raising opponent. I think the Caps they were too, and it was an awful night. So Tuesday is when it happens. Korpisalo, they said, is going to be the starter. Do you have any faith that a contract gets signed by Tuesday? Not that it'll be between the pipes, obviously, but a contract done before puck drops on Tuesday.
I have a little bit of faith that it'll be done, like I said, either tomorrow or over the weekend. Just before the regular season. Yeah, I think it could be. I think there's a 60-40 that it will. And if it isn't by regular season, then I think it could go to December 1st. Like I think the Bruins will have sort of a soft deadline to say we're getting this done before the regular season, and then we have other shit to do if he doesn't sign. And we'll wait till December 1st until he comes down to us. So I think if I had to be a betting man, I wouldn't bet a ton of it, but I'd put a little bit of jack on getting it done right before Tuesday.
Oh man, that would be drama.
Total. But I'll tell you what, here's the other narrative I don't like. And I talk to people on social media. Well, I don't talk to them. I watch them, respond to our posts.
Yeah.
And some of these people about the narratives about the Bruins being cheap are so overdone and so 25 years ago. It's crazy. They paid David Pastrnak market money. They paid Charlie McAvoy probably more than market money. Yep. They paid David Backes way too much money. They've paid Matt Bolesky way too much money. They've paid, guy after guy. They paid David Krejci $7 million when nobody did.
Was too much.
I mean, they pay they spend to the cap every year, to the cap. So, I that is not true. That is not true. And I agree with the Bruins in this case that this is what Swayman's value is. And, I wouldn't get much above 8 to 8.25. I wouldn't.
The last 2 Stanley Cup cores they've had, they have spent at market value or over market value to keep them there.
Yes.
I mean, we talk about after the 13 finals was when Rask, Bergeron, and Marchand got another contract within about a year. And then the last couple of years with Pastrnak and McAvoy. Like it's just, it's old. It's tired. It's just not, it's not true. And there are plenty of other teams around this league that you can point to that would fit, but we still hear, the Jacobs and the Bruins and they took Ray Bourque to arbitration,
Yeah, there's teams here who aren't at the cap floor. Like there's teams that struggle to get to the cap floor, and they're at the cap top every time.
Are you going to watch this Amazon thing?
I am, and I'm looking
way into
forward to
that.
some of the things on there. I think the first thing might be a McDavid thing or something. I can't remember, but
Well, that clip in the
it seems to
trailer
be
is
nice.
awesome for McDavid.
Yeah,
That's
seems
what
to
I'm
be
trying
pretty
to
good.
see.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty good, and this is stuff that NHL should do more. I mean, they have some real
I said this was
characters.
perfect. They needed
Yeah.
this.
They do.
And
They
I
don't
think
do
this
enough.
contract situation is, like I said earlier, in a weird way, good for the NHL. Here's
Mhm.
one of the biggest market teams, and they are the front of the headlines of the number one sports city in America, which is
Mhm.
Batman only cares about America. So,
Right.
And by
And
the way,
at a time where the Celtics are off and the Patriots and Red Sox are terrible.
Yep.
Like, so this is a perfect time to have this on air. And I'm surprised that it's not on Boston Sports Radio more often. Like they kind of slide by it and then continue to talk about the Patriots, who are completely irrelevant, and what they should be hammering this thing home all day long on sports radio, because it's a big story. It's a huge one. And if he gets traded, it's an even bigger one.
Yeah, it is perfect for the sports talk world, for all
It
this
is.
drama that's gone on, and now the sound bites. And it is cool that in this time they give a shit about the Bruins.
Yes.
From what they tried to, the sports media, sports talk in Boston tried to tell us for years that nobody gave a shit about the Bruins. And that's obviously, we knew that was not true. And you're starting to see that here. It is dominating the sports headlines. And that's why we bring in Matt Barry from Bruins Benders podcast. You guys dropping tonight, Thursday night?
We're dropping Sunday night.
Sunday night. All right.
2 nights before the opener. Yeah. We're going to drop a Sunday night. We're going to go live on YouTube, on the Inside the Rink YouTube channel. We're going to do post-game lives for pretty much as many games as we can during the regular season. So we'll hop right on about 10 minutes after games end and talk with people, and they can comment in our comment section, and we're going to just recap the games, and it'll be a really great season of Bruins hockey. And I'll tell you what, one thing about the Swayman stuff, it's really kept our podcast sort of humming at a dead time. So I thank him for that.
Yes. So Tuesday night, opening night, and afterwards you go to the Inside the Rink YouTube. You find the Bruins Bender podcast, and we talk about the beginning of the Jonas Korpisalo era.
Yes, so we talk about his shutout in Game 1 against the Florida Panthers. Yeah. How would that be? I mean, how great would that be?
The banner, and Kachuk is a late addition to the lineup because he's been hurt in the preseason. And wouldn't you know it, Korpisalo tried to get him to drop the gloves.
Right. Oh yeah.
And shut him out. Oh man, I hope he goes exactly like that. Really do. Matt, thanks so much for joining. Obviously, we will be tuning in to Bruins Benders, and we'll probably, I mean, at this rate, you're going to become a weekly guest here. We're going to
let's do it. Let's do it all season long. I'd love to, Cam. Always love the show. Love the show. Yes.
Let's go. Matt Barry, thank you very much.
We
will have Pete Souza on the Cam Show coming up next on Rogue Media Sports Network.
times.
Pete's back.
I've done that a million
I'm
times.
back.
Talking
with Pete.
about
done with a million times.
old school PR days, writing game notes where you just don't. You have like.
You want to know what Pete and I talk about during the breaks?
Yeah, real interesting.
Fucking game notes.
But no, it's true. Like you have these like when I was back working for the Charlotte Bobcats, it was Emeka Okafor's rookie year. So it was by the way, I started the campaign, right? It was the Got Milk Rookie of the Year. And I had this idea. I put it in the game notes. It was just a note about his chances of winning Rookie of the Year and how well he was playing. And I put Got Mech ? My boss, Scott Lightman, like hijacked the idea as his own, made milk cartons with the Got Mech thing, like took it to another level with our creative department. But I never got any credit for like they put like and Scott was a good PR guy. He sent the milk carton to PTI. They put it on the set of PTI, talked about Okafor being and he won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
But
I'm not gonna point out how you say milk because of the way you point out my accent all the time. I'm not gonna
What did I
point out
say,
how you the
milk?
word milk. It's like milk.
Milk.
Almost like Malk from The Simpsons. Vitamin R. It's an E. I think you're getting the
Lightman was a great guy. It was Lightman, BJ Evans, Bo Hussey, myself, and some other creative people. We put it all together.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you
Chris
this kind
Weiler.
of off the wall question here.
Yeah.
So Emeka Okafor and
Emeka
Okafor and the Charlotte Bobcats, therefore,
Yeah.
were featured. I think it was his rookie year, maybe his second year. Featured in an episode of One Tree Hill.
Yes,
Did
I
you
was
have
there for
anything
that.
behind that?
Dude, I was there. It was a huge deal. It was a preseason game.
Yeah, dude, we did like a whole segment earlier in the week, last week, about One Tree Hill, man. It was probably when you weren't here, actually. It was probably last Friday.
It was a huge deal. So they came
dude.
because it was shot in North Carolina.
Wilmington.
Yeah. So they came from Wilmington and it was a preseason game. And so we were a brand new organization. We had really smart guys connected with show business because the guys that were running our team, two of them, Ed Tapscott was our president and Chris Weiler was our vice president of marketing. They both came from the Knicks. So they would seize opportunities like this and they did a great job. And yeah, what was the guy's name? Mark, the lead.
Okay,
He had
we
three
had
names.
James Lafferty and Chad Michael Murray.
Chad Michael Murray.
Yeah, Chad Michael Murray was the big star. Yeah.
Michael Murray was the guy. He had like an interaction with Okafor. I was right there
Yeah.
for the whole thing. It was at the Charlotte Coliseum.
Can we see you in the background of that?
No, but I was
Damn it,
there.
man.
I was right there. It was a huge deal. That show was white hot at the time.
Yes, dude. We were talking. We went through a whole One Tree Hill thing last week. So I have two sisters, both older than me, but one's 8 years older than me.
Yeah.
And so she was in high school when that came out. Like
Yeah.
she literally graduated the same year the kids from One Tree Hill did in the show. And so I see Chad Michael Murray posters all over a wall and
Yeah.
shit. And then when I was in middle school, my other sister's only a year older than me. She controlled the clicker when we got home after school, and we would watch it on SoapNet every day. 2 episodes of One Tree Hill. I love One Tree Hill. It's stupid. It's bad acting. It's some weird shit.
So was
the scene when
so was 90210.
Sure, man.
So was Dawson's Creek.
We played a scene where Dan Scott's heart was he's getting a heart transplant and it was in a cooler. The doctor trips, the heart falls out, and a dog fucking eats it.
Stop.
Dude, I meant to tell you because I went back and
It's so
watched it
ridiculous.
again.
Yeah.
The dude it's a stoner who essentially has the dog there and he's just leaning back, like sleeping on the couch. That's why the dog's there. And the guy that brings the heart in trips over the leash that he's holding because the dude's eyes are closed and he's not paying attention.
Zach, did you watch One
So
Tree Hill?
great.
Yeah.
Oh,
That would have been
I
in your
love it.
wheelhouse too, the age-wise.
Yeah. No, it
Did
was
you watch it when
that.
you were in high school?
I did. I
Oh,
watched that, and oddly
fucking
enough,
weirdo.
it's not and Gilmore Girls too. But yeah. Hey,
But I got to go to Wilmington a couple years ago and see some of the spots where the river court was under construction or like
Yeah.
reconstructing around it, so I couldn't go there. But like the cafe and stuff.
I dated a girl who lived, and we were sort of serious. This is
Really?
back in my Charlotte days. Her family was from Landfall, that whole area back there. Really
Okay.
nice. Yeah.
Grace's sister lives in Wilmington. They're building a beach house down there, but she teaches at UNCW.
Yeah. Awesome area.
Beautiful town, man.
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't ever admit to Grace how cool it is because
Oh.
she'll be like, okay, let's live there. But it's
Very,
really
very
nice.
cool. Yeah. That's one thing. Like UNC Wilmington had a pretty good hoops team when I was in college. They would make the tournament a lot.
Really?
Yeah, Richmond would go up
Skills.
against them in the CAA, and they would duke it out for a title spot usually, and or VCU too, to go to the tournament. And but I was always like, why wouldn't more guys go play at the beach? Jerry Wainwright was their coach, good coach. Yeah. Wilmington had it going on. 1 Tree Hill. That's crazy. I can't believe.
I just when you
Yeah.
said the Emeka Okafor thing.
Yeah.
I was like that. PR. It just runs.
It was a
the
really
man.
cool time. It was a very cool time in my life, and you know, the Bobcats were a brand new organization. It was a startup. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the media guide. I have it on our little set.
We've got Pete Souza with us today. You might remember his work from the inaugural Charlotte Bobcats media guide. Now, Pete, what was your inspiration behind the media?
I can
guide,
tell
the
you
literature, if you will.
I have a
Why
bio.
did you try to rip it in half?
I have a bio in there, but I did not. I didn't contribute to that. I had gotten hired right as that came out.
Okafor in 04. That was another one.
That was a huge campaign. It was
should have been a Mecca in 04.
And well,
a good first name.
Yeah, that's true. But Okafor in 04, that
I mean, I guess where can I find your?
It's in there somewhere.
generally?
It's. I just come from USA Basketball. It's right by it's Lightman. Scott Lightman was my boss,
All right.
right?
I got to find a table of contents here.
Yeah. So I was Zach and Mike and
Jeff
I
Capel was on that staff.
have talked about. Yeah, we've talked about. And Bernie
Public
Bickerstaff.
relations staff 34.
Yeah, Bernie Bickerstaff was the head coach,
Yep.
who I love. His son JB, now a head coach. That's where I was able to develop a friendship with him.
Here we go.
He was
Here
an
we
assistant.
go. May I read this, please? Pete Souza, the newest member of the public relations staff. Pete Souza provides overall support to the department, helps maintain the team's historical archive, and writes press releases. That is like standalone. You could throw that paragraph in for any PR person. Pete, they didn't do you justice there.
No, they didn't.
Souza worked in the public relations office at USA Basketball, where he assisted with USA Basketball's website. That must have been a lot tougher back then. Wrote press releases and copy for publications, and was the media relations representative for the U.S. Women's Junior World National Team. He also worked for the War Room Football Scouts as a writer, provided editorial assistance to the sporting news for their publications and website, and to CBS's NFL Today show. I didn't know that, Pete.
Mhm.
Souza spent 2 years with SFX Group as a football recruiter. I also didn't know that.
Yeah. Working for an
1999
agent.
graduate of the University of Richmond.
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
There was
Good
like
for
a
you.
little bit of controversy.
Scott Lightman just got married at that point.
Yeah, Scott's a good man. He was a good man. He was young in that position and very feisty. Took no prisoners, and that attitude didn't necessarily serve him well.
Bo Hussey, incredible.
Bo.
Name. Incredible name.
Bo is
I
my
don't know-
man. Bo is still Bo and BJ. Bo is my main man. I was texting with him the other day.
BJ is your man. BJ Evans,
too.
not
BJ.
BJ Bickerstaff.
BJ, no, well, JB Bickerstaff too.
JB, sorry.
BJ
BJ
Evans,
Evans also in here. Yeah.
he runs the Cavs PR right now.
Oh, with Bickerstaff. Or
Well,
came in with
Bickerstaff got fired.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
he come in with Bickerstaff though?
No, he came in. He was
Does
by
that
himself.
happen? Would coaches bring PR?
One
people
guy,
with them?
one guy I know of. That's a great question. One guy I know of did that. Pat Riley took Tim Donovan with him from the Knicks to the Heat.
Because I'll bet that would actually be really advantageous from a lot of coaches.
Yes, and when you have
Especially
a
in
guy,
a tough market,
a guy like Riles, like he's very, like I'll call him Riles, very specific, and like how he wants things done.
Riles.
And so he knew
It's
Donovan.
like the best executive in NBA history. Pete's like, my guy Riles, like 80 years old.
He's the man. He was that guy. Being around him, he would just like float. You know.
I think it's so wild that there is someone who played in that Texas Western Kentucky game in 1966 that is not only alive, like really lucid, but also was like still running a basketball team in Pat Riley.
And
That's
and by the way, doing a very good job.
yes,
a team that
I'm
was in the
telling you,
finals 2
as
years
much as
ago.
I hate the guy for like he's always been a worthy adversary for the Celtics. My God, he's done it for 40 years.
Do
in
you
a
hate
bunch
him?
of different places. I mean, kinda, yeah.
Is that real?
Like he's not.
Like how much you got? Like Bill Simmons hates the Lakers.
it's well, Bill Simmons also did have the benefit of growing up through the 80s Lakers Celtics, and I didn't. It's like obviously he's not like a terrible person, you know what I mean? And he's not vicious. He looks like a villain, and he certainly did in the 80s, right? The slicked back hair, the Armani suits. But what sucks is that every turn he turns around teams and they end up clashing with the Celtics.
Yeah.
And he hates the Celtics. And this, obviously the Lakers were a thorn in the side, but they got a couple over him in the finals. And in the late 20 teens, early 2020s, the Heat have been a huge thorn in what has been a great Celtics team the last few years.
Yeah.
And it's a way that shouldn't even be winning in the NBA anymore. Like their style would have been great in the 90s.
Yeah.
And even in the early 2000s, you saw the Detroit Pistons teams are a lot like these Heat teams, but it's not supposed to be what is still that good in the 2020s. And they have proven it.
And you know what you know. And he knows that so well. And I'm sure there have been nuances and adjustments, right, that he's made to today's
He's a great
players
basketball
and stuff.
guy, man.
Yeah,
I will say, I think I mentioned this on the show.
one of the coolest dudes ever.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, come on.
I don't know, Pete.
Like,
I don't know.
I remember, girls had crushes on him. Like
he's a good-looking guy.
Good looking, dude. He was like a GQ model.
Silver Fox for his age, man. He could do
Who?
well now.
Oh, the silver. Now
Pat Riley, yeah. I have obviously, as you know, I'm an impassioned sports fan. There are franchises still as an adult I hate, and I don't want them to win things. But I feel like there's only been one franchise that I wish ceased to exist, and it would be the Miami Heat.
Really?
I don't want them to exist anymore. I hate the fits that they give the Celtics. I don't like the way they play. I respect it to a degree, but I don't like it. I don't like their fan base.
Well, that's easy not to
like. It's a fucking nightclub crowd that shows up at halftime, and whenever the Celtics are there in the playoffs, it's
like LA
30-40% green.
It's like LA light, right?
Yes. It's LA without the star power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, say what you will, Jack Nicholson is a Lakers fan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's into it.
Yeah.
But you have these people who are not celebrities. They're just 65-year-olds who do really well, and their 29-year-old girlfriends with them, and they're dressed in white. And like, I hate it. And I hate that they do more with less than anyone in the league.
Yeah.
And so I never want to face them.
Well,
they're the only ones that I want them to not exist. Yankees, the Canadiens, they're great for both my teams to have those rivalries. Miami, it doesn't behoove the Celtics at all to have a big time rivalry with the Heat. Because who gives a shit about the Heat? It's all Pat Riley. It's Spoelstra. Well, great, man.
I barely hung on as a PR guy for as long as I did. So I'm not a personnel guy, but Jimmy Butler, when he left the Sixers, I remember being like, what in the world? He was the one guy that could get us a basket and was just an MF.
And that was one in foresight too. That was not like a just hindsight's 2020. Why did we get rid of this guy?
Yes.
That was a commonly held belief at the time.
That was a typical Sixers move.
Yeah.
It sucked.
What? Tobias Harris to give more shots to Tobias Harris?
Toast, dude. No, it was somebody else. I forget. Like Richardson was part of the deal. Like,
yeah, but was it in a way to
maybe
get more time?
Yeah,
sure.
Like I think so.
I think that's what it was.
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah.
And that was so dumb. God, that was so dumb. And it wasn't like I know Jimmy Butler is kind of a weird guy in some ways, but it wasn't like he was a locker room cancer, if I'm remembering.
No,
correctly.
and so is every other talented superstar that drives people
to
do better and win. And he can say that now. He's a team he took that Heat team to the finals on their back twice, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Twice. Beat the Celtics in the conference finals both times.
The bubble was great.
Yeah, I mean that was an environment that would tailor to a team like that.
Were you in Odessa for the bubble?
No, I was in my last months here before moving to Odessa. Okay. Yeah. Last fall here. Because that was in like September.
That was great.
It was a weird time, man. I'm so glad that we kind of broke out of the COVID thing, because I was worried we weren't going to sports-wise. Like if we were ever going to have full arenas and not have masks, or if the environment would be as good because people were so used to being at home and watching shit at home. But we've gotten back.
And everybody gets a mulligan for their takes during COVID because we were all completely out of our minds.
Yeah.
So like, don't worry about it.
I'm not saying take down any banners or anything, but baseball and basketball, and I guess hockey too, would fall into that. COVID titles, they do feel a little weird to me. They feel a little weird to me.
Right now, but in like 15 years.
Especially the baseball one, man. 60 games, half the teams in the league in the playoffs, neutral site. It felt very weird. Anyway,
the basketball thing, you mean?
No, baseball.
Okay.
60-game season.
Where were the neutral sites?
Arlington hosted the World Series.
That's right.
And then it was Arlington and San Diego with the 2 pods.
God, I totally forgot that.
The Astros almost came back from 3-0 down to win a series. They forced a game 7.
When
I
was
was about to say that wouldn't count.
What month was that in? Did it finish up in the fall again?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was still, I think it was still the same timeline.
And that was when the Dodgers won, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mickey Mouse.
I remember that.
Anyway, Pete's going to be on at 1.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on your show at 1:30 or so.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. Every day at 11 a.m. Central Time. That's high noon on the East Coast here on YouTube. And then wherever you get your podcast, it's going to be after that. It's the Cam Show. It's Rogue Media Sports Network. We'll see you tomorrow.